Why is it so hard to find romance in today's world? Why is it so hard to find someone that really wants to spend more time with you than just a couple of hookups or a quick booty call? I think today's world has made us very scared. The dating world has become extremely toxic. And because of that, maybe non-toxic people will also start to behave more toxic because it's becoming the norm. But if you really look under the hood, if you really look deep down inside, even the people that are hurting the most, we all want to be loved.
Are you ready?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my new podcast where we'll be talking about the psychology of everyday drama. As our lives are rapidly changing due to technology, social developments, and even global uncertainties, we're losing our ability to deal effectively with everyday situations and even our human interactions. Now, in today's first episode of my podcast, I want to start talking about something that I've been talking a lot about in my reels and my TikToks and on social media, which is relationships, right? Love relationships. I think we all deal with relationships on a day-to-day basis at work, with our families, with our friends, but also in our romantic settings. Relationships are a very important aspect of our lives. One thing I've noticed while working on social media so far is that, people are looking for love. Even though in today's world we're so focused on ourselves and our personal development and, trying to make ourselves a better person, which is all a good thing, we still deep down inside want to have someone that we can be connected to and spend our time with and feel loved by. We're human, and as human beings, we're social by nature, and that means that we not only want and desire to be around people that we care about, but it also helps us to understand who we are. It also helps us to understand reality. Why is it so hard to find romance in today's world? Why is it so hard to find someone that really wants to spend more time with you than just a couple of hookups or a quick booty call? Well, today's world has changed considerably compared to where it was maybe 20 or 30, 40 years ago. But to be able to answer this question, why it's so hard to find love in today's world, I think we have to go and look back at how traditional dating was, if we can give that a name. So let's talk a little bit more about traditional dating. In the traditional sense, you would have to go out and try and find someone if you really wanted to meet someone for something that was much more long-term. You would dress up, you'd go out with your friends, look your best, and hope that you would find someone attractive when you go out to a bar or maybe to a club, and then also, have a conversation with them just to get to know them better. If you dare to, of course, right? You'd have to actually go up to someone and, just kind of come up with some kind of cheesy pickup line to see if they would fall for it. But still, the whole point of it was that you had to put in a lot of effort to get to know them. And once you did get to know them, eventually you'd have to go out on dates with them to know more about them. So to know more about their lives and what they do, where they work, what excites them, but also at the same time, also what are they fearful of, and also to get to know their other sides as well. For example, how do they respond and react when they get upset? How do they deal with difficult situations? And also, what do they want to get out of being together with someone? So in essence, dating was tough in the past, but we also put more effort into it, and we also learned how to deal better with each other's differences, especially if, in some cultures, for example, dating multiple people is not accepted. And staying with one person, though you might not can always like that person, it does teach you how to, teaches you more about yourself and how you can be more resilient in a relationship, and also, how to overcome difficulties in some sense. And now, again, I'm not talking about, going through very abusive relationships and accepting that. And many people, unfortunately, do. But I'm talking much more in the sense of, how it is to put in the effort and really not just give up on someone when the going gets tough. So let's actually bring this to modern relationships. Now, in modern relationships or modern dating, let's say, everything has changed. I think technology has come in and changed the way that we operate, the way we find partners, the way we find information about partners. That has completely changed. Now with mobile dating apps, we have a plethora or a limitless ocean of options in terms of people. So there's this thing called easy access. And with easy access, it is the fact that you can find anyone you want any time of the day at just a click of a button or a flick of a button. And when you do, it's like, okay, I want to find this person. I want to have a person with these traits. It's like going to Walmart and choosing what you want to have for dinner. I mean, that's not the best analogy to give, but you kind of get the idea, right? So you would think that having all those options available to you would make you much more happier, right? If we look at standard economics, and neoclassical economics would state the more options you have, the happier you're going to be. But what actually the behavioral science shows us is that the more options you have, the more paralyzed you become, and also the more unhappier you become with the choices that you've made. And I think this also really much applies to the field of dating. So when we have so many options available, we might not value the individual as much as when we have limited options. So if we think, wait a minute, I can replace you tomorrow, or I can find someone else, or I can have multiple options, then we don't really look at people as people anymore, but we actually start to look at them more as options in that perspective. When the going gets tough, even, think about it, when situations get very difficult, we then eventually might not want to face those difficulties, or maybe even challenge ourselves with our red flags that we identify in ourselves, and just kind of move away because it's the easier option to do. And when you have so many options available, then that's maybe the thing that you prefer to do than actually working on yourself or working on your relationship to make that work. Now, so ease of access is one thing that I think has changed the way we treat each other, full stop. So there's also ease of use that I think is another thing that we need to become more aware of in modern dating. So ease of use means, and it kind of links into easy access, is that basically if I can quickly find someone and engage with you, then why should I put in the extra effort to get to know you? Think about this. Why do we date? We date basically because we want to be intimate with people. And men mostly have a short-term mating strategy perspective, whereas women more often have a long-term mating strategy perspective. Now, I won't go into all of the evolutionary reasons for this, but just think about that. If your online environment allows you to have short-term mating strategies, then it facilitates your needs pretty well. But if you have more long-term mating strategies, then there's going to be a mismatch when you try to meet people on a dating app for the purpose of trying to find love or having a more long-standing relationship. What the internet does, or what dating apps do, is they actually make it very easy for us to have those short-term mating strategies and to facilitate that. And if we know that we don't have to put much effort into getting to know people, and we can just have a quick booty call, or have fuck buddies. Don't know if I could say that. I think I can, right? So, or you're looking for situationships or having multiple partners. That ease of use makes you believe that you can do that because people are just available. At the same time, it also gives you the feeling that you can maybe treat people differently because there are no consequences to how you behave to other people, and eventually how that would impact you later on. Look, in the old days, it sounds so strange that I'm saying that, but in the traditional dating, you would have your social network to vet the people that you know. Often we used to meet people through our social circles, and still today we do that, and in many cultures that still happens. So there's this kind of like vetting process that actually happens where people are kind of not scrutinized, but evaluated upon, and so you'll have like an additional layer of evaluation besides your own. However, in the online space, we don't have that, right? So we don't have like a 5-star rating like you'd have on Booking.com or some other, consumer website where you can give your feedback and tell people how great the service was or how bad the service was. But with dating, you just don't have that yet. I do think that would be something very interesting for the future, but that doesn't exist yet. So there's no real vetting process, and so anyone can get online. Anyone who is maybe not in the right mindset to date or shouldn't date at this stage of their lives can actually be there, right? And so if that need for being with someone for the short term is there, then eventually you might find people that are not going to be good for you or that are completely not interested in a long-term relationship. And then the other aspect about modern dating today, which I think really doesn't do well to, finding a more long-term partner, is this perceived distance. And when we perceive things to be far away from us, such as, for example, texting people through a WhatsApp chat or texting to people on Tinder after a match, you don't feel that the person is close to you. So, anonymity is there. You can treat them differently than you would do when they're face to face. Think about it. When, people slide into your DMs so easily nowadays, but when you meet them on the street, they just kind of completely ignore you, or they don't have the social skills to even talk to you, right? So the internet and the digital layer in our screens have created some kind of distance to which we don't feel comfortable as much as we did in the past to have conversations with people, to show up, or even, deal with a difficult situation. We'd just rather walk away because it feels much more easier to do. So I think that perceived distance also has some kind of impact on how people interact with each other nowadays. This concept of ghosting has come up too much around me, and I've seen it with a lot of people. People just ghost other people because if you have too many options, you can just let people go, basically. Why would I even put any time into you and show you any respect that I want to spend time with, or even tell you that I just don't like you? And now we just ghost people, basically, right? So ghosting has become a big thing nowadays, also because of how the internet and social media apps are actually impacting the way that we behave. I guess when we take this all together, modern relationships, especially romantic relationships, it's getting harder. It's getting tough. And I think technology and changing norms about what we believe about relationships and the importance that we give to someone else and wanting to be with someone else it's completely changing. In the sense of it isn't what it used to be. Now, does it mean that we have to be continuously worried for the future? Absolutely not. I think if you consider if you are intentional about what you want and what you're looking for, then be intentional about looking for someone who is also serious about being in a relationship or wanting to be with you as well. I think today's world has made us very scared. The dating world has become extremely toxic. And because of that, maybe non-toxic people will also start to behave more toxic because it's becoming the norm. But if you really look under the hood, if you really look deep down inside, even the people that are hurting the most, we all want to be loved. We all want to be together with someone. We all want to feel that connection. But all the shit that's happening around us basically is preventing us from actually showing up or putting our best foot forward or actually wanting to make things work, let alone the technology and stuff that's, preventing us to be better humans and form better connections. But we also need to be more intentional about things, and we also need to learn how to get over our fears as a way to work on ourselves and not be distracted or not be taken back by every single first red flag that we see in people or believe to see. And so I think that's a very important thing. Be intentional about what you want, be intentional for what you're looking for, and don't give up if you really want to find someone and be with someone, because there are people out there that do want to have long-term relationships. Today's world is fleeting, and that's the feeling that we have. Time is passing by so fast. Why should I spend my time with someone and significantly invest myself into someone when I'm not sure that person's going to invest in me, vice versa? I get another job in another city. So, but we can still be intentional. If we really want something and we want to be with someone, then it's all about intentionality. When we first start to meet people for the first time, I think, dating, even though dating in today's world is seen as a cumbersome process, right? You have to go out, you have to go meet people, you have to put the effort into it. And with today's technology, things have just become so easily. Why should you? But for those people that actually want to put the effort into it, I think it's very important to also, identify what are good behaviors, what are bad behaviors, in terms of making sure that the person that you're going out with is the right person for you. Now, I have my upcoming book called Red Flags, Green Flags, Modern Psychology for Everyday Drama is coming out early next year. So I'm super excited to talk about red flags and green flags. And one of the areas where I talk about red flags and green flags is in the area of dating. And so how do you identify red flags and green flags in, when you first start to get to know someone? I always say, make sure to not only look at like the positive things about people, but also make sure to kind of be aware of certain behaviors that might be an indicator of a potential red flag in a relationship. Now, of course, red flags and green flags are very subjective, right? Sometimes we only see green flags in people, especially when we're completely in love or we're infatuated by someone, and sometimes we don't even want to see the red flags. And sometimes we've been in bad relationships that eventually we get addicted to the red flags. That also happens a lot. And there's also times that, we think that certain green flags are green flags, but they're actually more red flags. Or sometimes those red flags show us that we are actually the red flag. So, again, there's a lot of subjectivism around this topic, but I love this topic because, like I mentioned before, we're losing our capabilities to deal with human interactions nowadays. And with things changing so rapidly, how do we really know what is a green flag and a red flag? So that's why my book is there, to help people to better identify certain behaviors and to see when something is good or when something is a warning sign. So when it comes to modern dating, what are some red flags and green flags in modern dating? Now, when you get to know someone and you really like them, you can easily fall into the trap of just seeing them with this kind of rosy color. You've got these glasses on. Everything about them is just fantastic. They make you feel good emotionally. They're just amazing. They smell good. They feel good. Everything about them is so great. And so you eventually just really like them and you want to get to know them more or better. But because you like them so much, this kind of these positive emotions or feelings can cloud you and cloud your judgment of potential red flags in their behavior. So what are some of the red flags that you should watch out for in relationships? Well, one of the common things that I hear a lot about in my interaction with a lot of people is love bombing. So once they've given you all this attention and affection, what happens is that love bombers often then pull back. They become very cold, very distant, and then you start to question yourself, like, what did I do? Did I do anything wrong? And, how can I get their attention back? I really love the feeling that they've given to me. And then you go out of your way to make them feel good, or you might respond in a different way saying, well, look, I don't know what I did wrong. So you start to question yourself. And then it just starts a cycle. So eventually what happens is that after a couple of days or weeks, they might come back to you and then show you the same affection that they did, or they might have apologized for the fact that they did that to you or treated you in such a bad way, only then to fall back into that trap again of becoming extremely distant. And the whole purpose of this is for love bombers to have more control over you and to coerce your behavior. Now, why do love bombers do what they do? Love bombing has often been associated with narcissism, low self-esteem, and also insecure attachment styles. Now, if we look why narcissists often love bomb their partners, we have to go back into their upbringing in their childhood. Basically, why narcissists become the way they are is because they've been highly neglected as kids, or they've not had that attention that they should have gotten in their childhood years. And as they grow up, they try to find ways of how to get that affirmation, to get that recognition, to feel connected and not feel abandoned. And so it develops into this unconscious way of approaching people, of showering them with all kinds of affection and attention, as a way to build that connection very strongly. So again, narcissists don't do that always consciously. Often it's an unconscious programming in their minds that just kind of comes out of a survival mechanism or a coping mechanism. But what happens eventually over time is that when the narcissist kind of gets infatuated by you and idolizes you, that image that they have in their heads eventually cracks. So the unfortunate truth is that very often narcissists don't really fall in love with you. They actually fall in love with this image they have in their heads of you, which is completely perfect in their eyes. But eventually that image can't sustain itself. And then you do something, or something happens in the dating process, or even in your relationship, that shatters that image. Now, just imagine when something's shattered and you try to put, like, for example, a mirror together that's been broken, you can never get it back to its original state. So you don't value that mirror as much anymore. And that's exactly what narcissists do. When that image of you has been shattered, they start to devalue you because they don't see that you have that same value that you did before. That image is not there anymore. You don't feed their ego anymore as much as you did in the past. So the more effort you put into trying to save your relationship, the more the narcissist devalues you, because basically he or she has lost interest in you. You don't feed their own personal interest or their ego anymore. And the more that you try to be, helpful and considerate and empathetic, the less they actually see you as someone valuable. And so then the final phase in that kind of romantic relationship with the narcissist, after being love bombed and eventually also devalued, is being discarded. So basically they will let you go, or they'll replace you with someone else, or if this happened purely in the dating process, they might just ghost you and let you go and never come back to you, and even tell you about why they're leaving. I'm not saying that all narcissists ghost, or that all people that ghost are narcissists, but it is a very typical reaction that you could expect. And I think that's a red flag, right? So the red flag here in this case is watch out for how people treat you in the beginning. And, when things feel too good to be true, or your friends say it's too good to be true, then maybe you should watch out. So that's red flag number one. Another red flag that you should be watching out for, because remember in the dating process, and when you like someone, people are trying to put their best selves forward. They're trying to, let's be honest, like you want to show your best to the other person. You're really conscious about what you say and how you behave. So again, before I give you the second red flag, I want to say that watch out for the subtle behaviors, right? Because the subtle behaviors are the things that people don't have control of. The subtle behaviors, happen especially in unexpected situations or in stressful situations. That's when people's true intentions or true behaviors can come up. And when you pay attention to those subtle behaviors, you can actually pick up on more interesting cues about how people actually are and how they behave in certain situations. So, red flag number 2 is watch out for what they say to you. And for example, do they say things to you like, God, you are definitely much more smarter than you look? Now, that could sound like a compliment, right? So you sound smarter than you look. That must be a compliment. But if you think carefully about what they're trying to say here, is that you don't look that smart, but you actually are smart. And so that kind of devaluation, well, not devaluation, but that kind of, I'm putting you down. By saying that, I'm actually putting you down and creating insecurities inside of you, which can be done either consciously or unconsciously. And so being aware of that is extremely important, of picking up on those subtleties. Another subtlety that you have to watch out for is when I call this the special girl syndrome, and this is just a terminology that I've come up with. It could be the special boy syndrome, but putting it back into the analogy of special girl, when a guy comes up to you and says, "I've never met a girl like you before," or "You're the only person that really understands me," giving you that feeling that you are really the special person. Now, look, don't get me wrong, you can, to that person, be a very special person, but you should, it should be something that is based on your experiences with that person. You should have been on multiple dates. You should have gotten to know that person for such a long time, for that person to be able to say that, and you also feel that that is true. However, with someone who love bombs you, and they say, "I love you" after the second date, and you're so special and I've never met anyone like you before, that's when you should watch out. Watch out, because you know that it's not based on any true facts, because how can they base that on any good evaluation of you? And it's just a way to kind of win you over faster than you should be won over. So those are some things that you should watch out for. And also be more mindful that if you've been in some bad relationships and you're really missing the affection of another person, or by nature you're just slightly more insecure about yourself, then these kind of words of affirmation and positivity and making you feel special can actually make you feel amazing. And you could fall for it very easily. So it's not only about paying attention to it, but also paying attention to yourself and what these words do to you and why are they impacting you so much. I think that's also another very important thing to reflect on when you hear things being said to you, especially when you're getting to know someone in the beginning stages of dating. The third red flag and this is a more sinister red flag, I would say, is when someone says to you, just imagine us being together, getting married and having kids, or, sipping cocktails and Bali next week. And I call this as false future projection. And false future projections are creating these kind of, future viewpoints of you and the other person, imagining what it would be like to be together, just to kind of create a positive feeling, or creating fake goals for you to maybe work more towards with this person, or to make you more excited to be with them. And again, this third red flag is often done very intentionally, just to kind of win you over again very quickly. And if it's only to be intimate, they could try to get you into bed and to say that. But sometimes it could also be that they want something more from you. It could be money, it could be power, it could be connections, and getting closer to you and kind of creating these fake fake future projections, and you falling for that is a very manipulative and a malevolent approach to actually building a connection with you, because they're not really wanting to be with you, but more they want to get something out of you. I think two more come to mind right now, two more red flags that I think I'd like to share with you of what to watch out for when you first get to know someone. Is when they say to you, when you're having a conversation, because a lot of people love to talk about their exes, right? When we're first meeting someone new, you're going on a date, and oh yeah, let's talk about our exes. And when they eventually say like, oh, my exes are crazy, that is a red flag. I'll tell you, if you hear that, run. Run as fast as you can. Because why? That says, first of all, that the person doesn't take any responsibility for what they do. They do not, they just blame everyone else and not themselves. And the moment that anyone says that they, all their exes are crazy and they're never to blame, that is not a person that you want to be with for a long time. So if you like them, go have fun with them, but don't get connected to them, because it's not going to be good. The better decision here is really, with that red flag, is to run as fast as you can. And the last red flag that I want to share with you in terms of what to pick up on, like what to watch out for, in terms of what people say is, I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry that I did that, but my past made me do that, and I can't help myself. So it's kind of deferring responsibility away and saying, my past did this. And especially when they come to you and they try to bond with you through, some of the trauma that they've gone through in the past, or bad experiences, and that's how they connect with you. And then they use that as an excuse later on in their conversations with you when they do something bad, and saying, I'm so sorry that I did this, and I can't do anything about it because my past, really just made me do this. That is also a definitely big red flag. So stay away from, I wouldn't say people, but stay away from those situations. Those situations should definitely kind of ring a bell, or put up a really big red warning sign and tell you this is not right? If someone says that. So, and this often is not often said early in when getting to know someone. This probably happens. These kind of things are often said after you've been with someone for a while. And probably after you've kind of gone through some dating, and now you're kind of getting into a relationship, or maybe into a situationship where you kind of don't really know what's happening. And so when those things are said, I'll tell you, it's better to kind of figure things out early on and try to find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And picking up on these red flags early on definitely will prevent a lot of headache and heartache down the road. Now, we've talked about red flags. Now, let's also talk about some of the green flags. I think green flags are really important to also acknowledge, because what are the things that we want to watch out for that actually are indicators of someone being a suitable partner, someone being able to stand by us in difficult times, and not just want to go to bed with us, but also wants to spend a life with us, and who's capable of doing that. First and foremost, I want to mention that, as I mentioned in the beginning, is that we fall in love with people, and it's so easy to kind of look at the good sides, right? When we get to know someone and we really like someone, we're just kind of evaluating them. What else is great about them? What else is great about them? But when we fall in love with people, or we really like someone, remember that having a relationship with someone is not just about the good things about them. It's also about the bad things that they have inside of them, or their weaknesses, or their learning points, or their developmental areas. Remember, when you have a relationship with someone, you're also falling in love with their past traumas. Or well, not falling in love, maybe that's a weird thing to say, but you're actually also accepting that side of them as well. Besides the good sides that they have, you're also there to help them to evolve and grow from the responses that maybe are not that supportive or not that evolved as they should be. So being together with someone is bringing in your good sides as well as your areas of growth, and being safe and feeling safe enough and providing that space and being willing enough to help the other person to grow, and vice versa, of course. Green flags are really important for this as well, because those green flags are indicators of how well you can deal with the other person in the long term. So think of things like empathy, your ability to listen to other people, your ability to work through difficult situations, your ability to resolve conflict. These are all very important aspects that we want to look for. But so how do we pick up on them, and how people behave and treat us and communicate to us? Well, one of the first things is, can we pick up on supportive behavior? Does someone say to you when you're going through the ruts of things or having a bad time, hey there, dear, or hey there, love, is there something that I can do for you? I can see that you're going through a hard patch right now. Is there anything that I can do to help you right now? Or is there anything that I can take over from you so that you can just focus on yourself? Now, when someone says that, that's a really good indicator, of course, of someone being more supportive and empathetic. Not only their ability to see that you're in a bad situation, but their ability to also be willing to support you. Of course, that's a behavior that you want to see happen continuously, not the whole time, but of course, that's a behavior that you want to see not happen just once, but it should happen a couple of times, and it is a very good indicator of someone being a supportive partner. Now, another very important indicator, or a green flag, I would say, in relationships, is someone's ability to listen to you. Active listening, right? We often think that listening is just sitting down and listening to the person. No, listen to what's being said, but also listen to what's not being said, because sometimes what's not being said speaks louder than actually what's being said. And so someone who can show that ability to actively listen to you is a super strength, right? And them saying to you, for example, look, what I hear you saying is that you actually want to spend more time with me at home and not outside. Is that correct? I'm happy to do that. And for that person to give that back to you, where you might be kind of saying like, yeah, I don't want to go out there, or I don't want to socialize over here, shows also a very deep skill to be able to listen to you in different ways than what you're actually saying. Because very often we don't say things as they really are, kind of we beat around the bush. But do you have someone next to you that is able to listen between the lines, or to look between the lines and to listen to you much more deeply? And I think that's also an important skill set to have. That's definitely a green flag. And one more green flag that I think is really important is people's ability to deal with difficult situations. I mean, by far, that is the number one factor of success in long-term relationships. And so being able to deal with difficult situations means that when you are faced with a problem, or a difficult situation at home, or a problem, either a personal problem or a relational problem, how well can you resolve those problems together? And now, naturally, we'll have our own abilities to deal with situations, and we might not always be happy or satisfied with how someone else deals with that situation, or even looks at that perspective. And so, can you find ways to, resolve the problem together? Can you find ways to understand each other's perspectives? And can you find ways to find a mutual ground? And then you might not completely accept or really like the other person's way of dealing with things, but can you be understanding to them and adjust yourself and find a common ground to then find a solution? Or can you find the time to diffuse the emotion, come back to them and say, look, let me understand what you're trying to do, but let me help you also understand how I saw this problem, so that you can find a mutual ground to move forward. Now, all of these difficult situations, and there's many more that we can discuss, but if you're able to deal with difficult situations and leverage each other's differences as a way to find common ground and resolution together, then I think this is a major green flag that you definitely want to watch out for. especially in today's world when we just run away from difficult situations. So that's another green flag that I definitely want you to consider and also to look for in people's behaviors. So again, just kind of reflecting back on today's discussion, we've talked about relationships, and damn it, I have so much to say about this, but I just wanted today, in today's first episode, just want to focus on love relationships and more importantly, why they are important for us. And, again, we're human by nature and we need to be with other people, and, having someone that we love in our lives is very important. Just focusing on ourselves, like a lot of us are doing nowadays, and it's become a trend, is great in terms of your own personal development, but we should not get too scared of wanting to open up and be with other people. Yes, today's dating scene is super toxic. I completely agree with that. And technology and how we think about relationships and people and how we value people has definitely played a major role in making it harder to find someone to actually be with, or actually to date someone for the long term. And what we've also looked at is, if you do want that, and so once you actually get into the process of actually wanting to meet someone for something more serious, then what are the things that you need to watch out for? And of course, the things that you can watch out for in your relationships and once they actually become a relationship, but what are the things that you need to watch out for in those initial stages? I really think that those initial stages of getting to know someone are really important. So once you put your best foot forward and you try to find people, it's really important to pay attention to details and paying attention to red flags and green flags, because we can become so infatuated by people and who they are and how they communicate with us, and love bombing actually now becoming so common, such a common strategy as a way to form quick connections very quickly, but only knowing that is not going to be lasting down the road and actually can turn out to be very, very bad for you, not only for your mental health but also for your physical health. So identifying red flags and green flags early on is really important. Pay attention to those things that are not good for you. Pay attention to the subtleties in people's behaviors, because we always try to put our best foot forward, but we're never really in control of the small behaviors that we have in our day-to-day life, especially when we're under pressure or we're challenged. Then those subtleties do come out. So pay attention to those, but also do pay attention to the green flags and figure out what are those qualities in an individual that I appreciate, but also what are those qualities that actually show that someone can be much more of a long-term partner. So in my upcoming shows, of course, we're going to talk much more about dating and dating behaviors, and of course about toxic behaviors, and also about strategies that work very well to make dating more successful. But we'll also talk more about other kinds of human relationships that we have on a day-to-day basis. So think work relationships, think family relationships, think friend relationships. But also let's talk about relationships. Let's also talk about human connections and human relationships and long-term relationships when we talk about marriage and kind of more that long-term bonding. So a lot more really interesting stuff to talk about, a lot more red flags and green flags to share with you, and to also kind of dive into under the hood to talk about the psychology of those red flags and green flags, and also to become more mindful when we are potentially a green flag or a red flag. So much more to share with you in the upcoming episodes. I'm very excited. I know this is the very first podcast that I'm doing right now, and and it's only going to get better. So please stay tuned and let me know also what you would like to hear me talk about from a psychological perspective, from a human relationship perspective, and I'll try and come in there and answer your questions and provide you a much more deeper understanding to what's happening in our everyday lives. So thank you for your attention today, and I look forward to seeing you back in my next episodes.
Are you ready?